Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. In this video I want to show you how to draft a corset, also known as a bustier top with a square neckline. So I've gone ahead to take all of my measurements and draft my pattern halfway. So I've taken my shoulder measurements, my armhole measurements, and my chest line, my bust point line, my under bust line as well. So this is the front pattern while this is the back pattern. So this is the under bust and the front half length line. This line here is the back half length line. So the front and the back half length is not usually identical. I just extended the front half length line to show the difference between the front half length and the back half length. Then I have my bust band over here. For this front pattern, at the shoulder area, I had to divide what I have by 2 to connect the line from the shoulder to meet the bust point. Remember, the bust span line for the front stops at the bust point. Sorry that this part of the video was cut off, but after taking your neck standard measurement of 3 by 3, whatever you have left, you divide it into 2 and draw a line from there to meet the bust point. So after taking all of the horizontal measurements and marking out the bust span line, what I'm going to do next is the over bust suppression and the under bust suppression. After doing that, then I can go ahead and take the full body measurements and cut out the basque waistline. So I'm going to start with the under bust suppression. I'm working with a bust 44. So I'm going to be taking out a total of 2.5 inches. The amount you're going to take out depends on the bust size. For a bust 40 and above, I recommend taking at least 2 inches. From 45 and above, 2, or from 44 and above, 2.5 to 3 inches. And I don't recommend going past 3 inches, but I mean, if the size you're working with is not usually the regular bust size, then you can go above that if needed to form a proper cup. So one thing I want you guys to note is that for this center front, you can't take out anything more than 1 inch. If not, the fitting won't be right. So I'm going to mark 0.75 inch. I like to use 0.75 inch for this side. Some people even use half of an inch. Some don't take out anything from the center front at all, but I'm going to take out 0.75 inch. What I have left is what will now be taken towards the side front to make a total of 2.5 inches. So for the center front, I will mark 0.75, and for the side front, I will mark 1.75 inch. You can see that what I have here is 1.75 inch after marking it. So I'm also going to take the same thing at the half length, because I'm going to be drawing a straight line from the under bust to meet with the half length line. So I also come to the half length and mark my 2.5 inch mark and also the 0.75 inch mark, and then use a straight line to connect from the under bust to the half length. So after doing that, I'm going to come to this bust point line here and mark half of an inch above the bust point and half of an inch below the bust point. So this is where all of the suppression will meet, and I am marking this out to prevent the curve from being too sharp after joining. The next thing I want to do is the over bust suppression. Before doing the over bust suppression, I'll have to determine where I want the neckline to stop. That's the neck depth, because this is a square neckline. So I suggest taking the measurements on yourself or on your clients to determine where you want the neckline to stop, so you won't end up having something too low or too high. So I went ahead to mark where I want this neckline to stop, and then I'm just going to draw a straight line from there, because it's a square neckline, so I don't need to draw any curve or anything like that. So I just ruled a straight line from there to meet with the armhole. So it is at this line that I'm now going to do the suppression for the over bust. To meet with the half inch I marked above the bust point. So for this upper part, I'm going to be taking less than I did for the under bust because majority of the fullness of the bust is at the under bust and not at the over bust. So I'm going to be taking out just 2 inches. You can use 1.5 inch if you want. Standard is usually 1.5 inch for over bust suppression, but you can decide to go extra if you want it to cling more to the chest area. So towards the center front, I will mark 0.75 inch and mark the balance towards the side front. For this neck part, you can decide to use half of an inch instead because you don't want it to be too curvy. Remember the rule, for both the under bust and the over bust, don't go in by more than 1 inch, and for the over bust, I think 0.75 inch is enough. So to connect this, I'm going to be using a straight line. For the over bust, always use a straight line. So I will connect what I've marked to meet with the half of an inch I marked above the bust point. You can see that this line does not meet with the bust point line. It is a little bit above the bust point line, so that's what you want. You can also let it meet with the bust point line, but you just have to make sure that the curve is not too sharp. So this is my way of avoiding that curve. And then for the under bust part, I'm going to be using a curve ruler, making sure that it's not too curvy. You can see that I used the part of the ruler that is not like too sharp, and then I just connected this together. So you can see that towards the side front now, after connecting the line with the curve ruler, the curve is really obvious. That's because I took more from the side front than I took from the center front. So this helps to form a very nice curve. That's why I see that some bustiers, when you look at it from the side, you can see the curve showing perfectly well. So this is what makes the bustier curve to be very obvious when you take more from the side front. So what I'm going to do now is connect from this suppression at the side front to meet with the shoulder line, and I'm just going to use a straight ruler for that because this is a square neckline with a strap. I want this to be a cut together strap, so I'm just going to come from here straight. You can make this slant if you want it to look like a Queen Anne neckline. You can make it slant, but I want mine to be just straight, so I'm going to use a ruler to connect it straight. So once I join these 2 points together, I'm going to have a very sharp square neckline. What I want to do next is to cross-check these 2 curves, because you can see that one is longer than the other. Can you guess which side is longer? Okay, it's the one towards the side front. So I'm going to measure the curve I have towards the side front and compare it with the measurements I have towards the center front. For the side front, what I have is a total of 8.1 inches, and towards the center front, the curve is 7.1 inch. So the center front curve is short by exactly 1 inch. So I have to add that 1 inch back to the center front curve so that when I join the both of them, it will be equal and I won't have any shortage. So I just went ahead to mark 1 inch above this line. So I just marked it this way. Don't worry about the way I place my tape roll. It is 1 inch I marked, and then I just used a straight line to connect this back to the curve. And from here, I will draw a straight line across. So this is going to be the new neckline for the center front only. I know you're probably wondering, but this is looking longer than the side. By the time I join everything together, it's going to align. So because this is a square neckline, I can't just ease it back into the initial neckline. I have to just take it straight like that so that it will maintain the neckline shape. So this is what I'm going to be using for the center front neckline. So when I measure the curve for this center front line and I measure the one for the side front, I got the same measurement of 8.1. That's because I already replaced what was short from the center front. So this is everything regarding suppressing the over bust and the under bust. What I'm going to do next is take my round measurement. I'm going to start with the bust. The bust I'm working with is 44. 44 divided by 4 will give me 11. So I'm going to mark 11, and whatever I have at the bust point line is what I am also going to mark at the chest line. One thing I noticed that some people usually do is that they'll separate the center front from the side front and then place the curve to overlap each other before taking the bust measurements. I just want to illustrate this for you guys to see the difference between the two. I hope you paid attention to where I marked for the bust the first time. So you see that when I slash this center front and place it on top of the side front to take the bust measurements, what I have is more than what I marked initially. This is longer by almost 2 inches extra, so I do not recommend taking that route when trying to take a round measurement. Just leave the pattern as it is and take the body measurement. So I've placed the pattern back the normal way, and I'm taking the bust measurement again, which is 11, and you can see that what I have is even more than 2 inches difference when I mark the 11 inch here. So you can see the difference between the 2 points. It is more than 2 inches, which is why I don't recommend overlapping it this way before taking a bust measurement. Just leave it like this and take the regular measurement. So I'm going to go ahead and also take my waist measurements now. The waist I am working with is 40. 40 divided by 2 will give me 10. Sorry, I'm supposed to mark this at the half length line, not the under bust line. So I'm going to go ahead and mark 10 inches at the half length. After marking 10 inches, then I'll go ahead and replace what I took out of the half length, which is 2.5 inches, meaning that I'll be marking a total of 12.5 inches at the waist area. And then I'm just going to use a straight ruler to connect all of this together. Obviously I can't connect the ruler like this. You can see that what I have is slants, and if I take it according to the exact point I have, I'm going to end up having a very crooked line, and you don't want that. So I'm just going to ignore the mark that I already placed on the pattern for the bust line and just connect straight from the chest line to the half length. So this way I have a more smooth line than if I connect from the chest line to the bust point, then from the bust point to the half length. What I want to do next is cut out the basque waistline. To be able to do this, I have to cut off this under bust suppression. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut out the pattern. I won't be cutting it fully. I'm just going to cut out the center front part, and for the side front I'll cut out the suppression. Please pay attention to the way I'm cutting this out. You can see that I'm following this curved line to cut out the excess. So after cutting out the excess, what I'm going to do is join these two patterns together, making sure that the half length line is aligned properly. Then I'll use a stylo tape to hold this down so it doesn't shift when I'm drawing out the basque waist. To cut out the basque waist, I'll have to come down by a few inches from the center front and connect this back to the half length line. So this part is up to you. For me, I'm going to be using about 4 inches for this. So depending on how long you want it to be, that's like how much you're going to come down by. But I suggest not going lower than your actual blouse length, except if you're going for a specific kind of look. So I'm going to mark 4 inches below the center front and then connect this back to the half length line. I ended up going lower by an extra half of an inch. So another thing I want to show you guys is a hack for getting this corset look on a bustier. So this corset look is like when the center front is looking slimmer from the under bust down to the corset length. So a quick and easy way to achieve this is to come from this under bust point line and then mark a slant line to meet the hem of the corset from the side front. Remember that this paper, like everything has been joined together, the whole pattern, so you can kind of modify this part a bit. So you're going to basically cut off from the center front and add this to the side front pattern. So I'm not using a specific measurement for this. I'm just like going with my intuition and seeing what I like. So I'm just placing this ruler and seeing how, if I'm okay with what I have. So I was okay with this. I decided to just draw a slant line from there. So now this part of the center front that I have marked will be part of the side front. I'll now go ahead and use a sellotape to secure this down so that it doesn't shift. Now I'll go ahead and cut out what I have marked. Try to be careful with this under bust area. Remember that we still have a curve underneath this part. So you just be careful when you're cutting that part so you don't end up cutting off the curve for the side front. So this is what I have now. Before I cut out this side, I'll have to take the side dart, also known as the bust dart. So this is the difference between the front half length and the back half length. Remember that this back pattern, the back half length is different from the front half length. So this is the difference between the front and the back half length. I'm going to go ahead and measure that from the bust point line downwards. What I have is 1.5, so I'm going to mark 1.5 below the bust point line, and I'll be connecting this back to the bust point. So I'm going to use a straight ruler to connect this before I close the dart. To be able to close this side dart, I'll have to slash through the middle. Also, you can just decide to fold it in and use a sellotape to hold it down, but you have to make sure that you close the side dart. If not, when you're joining, you'll notice that one side is longer than the other. So by the time I close the side dart, the sides of both the front and the back will align. So you notice that when I was cutting, I did not cut directly on the line. For this side front pattern, I left a space of about 5 to 6 inches. This is for adding my side seam allowance. And another thing is that once you close the side dart, one side is going to end up being longer than the other. So it's good to always have space to be able to correct that. As you can see, this is longer by about half of an inch. So I'm just going to use a sellotape to hold it down first before I correct that. Closing the bust dart is not really difficult. You just cut down one side and then place it over the other one, and this is going to be possible only if you have opened one dart. So notice that this other dart that passes through the bust pan line has been taken out because I've already separated the center front from the side front. If you have not done that, you won't be able to easily close the side darts because the paper will be getting wrinkled because there's no space for the dart to spread or transfer. So I'm just going to use my sellotape to hold this down, and then I would replace the shortage. To do this, I will just connect from the chest line back to this point. So I'm just taking it this way. I'm not adding anything extra to the chest line. So now that that has been done, what I'm going to do next is to take my side seam allowance. I usually use 2 inches so that after turning with my lining, I'll be left with 1.5 inch seam allowance. So I'm just marking 2 inches on all of the lines, and then I use my ruler to connect this together. So this is everything for the front pattern. The main work is in the front pattern. So I've done everything from the over bust suppression, under bust suppression, marking out the neckline, correcting shortage in the curve, drafting out the basque waistline, and cutting off from the center front to add to the side front to give it more of a basque look. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then we'll move on to the back pattern. To make this look more like a corset top, you can go ahead and add more style lines. To do this, you just divide the pattern into how many you want it to be. Like this center front, you can divide it into 2, and then this side front can also be divided into 2. So that's what makes it look like a corset top. So guys, this is everything for the front pattern. You can see it's looking very nice. By the time I join these 2 sides together, this is how it's going to be looking like from the under bust point below. And then when I join the neckline area, I'm going to have a nice sharp square neckline. I'm going to keep this aside and move on to the back pattern. For the back pattern, you guys saw this earlier. I also went ahead to mark my shoulder measurement, my armhole measurement, the bust point, and the half length. For the back pattern, we don't need the under bust measurement, and like I said earlier, the back half length is usually shorter than the front half length. You get this measurement by just taking the measurements on your client's body or getting someone to take the measurements for you. So that's how you get the front and the back half length. So to make sure it's accurate, just tie a rope around the half length area to get the exact measurement. So let's just get right into the back pattern. First of all, I'm going to just cancel out this front half length line because it's not going to be needed. Next thing I'm going to do is mark 1/2 inch at the center back, and this will be on the half length line. So this 1/2 inch, I'm marking it to eliminate zip bug. So from this 1/2 inch, I'm going to just connect this straight into the shoulder line. Basically connects it from the half length down to meet the shoulder. So by doing this, I'm going to reduce the chances of having zip bug when I am done joining my fabric together. So after cutting on the pattern and joining the fabric, I will not have zip bug. So that's the first thing. Then I'm also going to go ahead and take out the dart. The standard dart is usually 0.5 inch on both sides from the bust pan line, but I personally use 0.75 on both sides for my darts. This is also a good way to prevent folding at the back because the back is not straight. So taking out that extra 0.25 will help to make the back to relax very well. So I'm going to connect this straight to the chest line. For the front, the dart stops at the bust point, but for the back, it stops at the chest line. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark the darts out. After that, what I'm going to do next is to take the round measurements. This part is not really complicated. I'll just take the bust measurement divided by 4, which is 11, and then for the waist, what I'm going to do, I'll take the normal waist measurement. But remember, I have taken out a total of 2 inches from the waist. So 0.5 inch on both sides for the darts equals to 1.5 inch plus the half of an inch taken at the center back, which totals to 2 inches. So I'm going to replace that 2 inches at the waist. Also pay attention to where I'm placing the tape rule when marking out the bust. You can see that it's 11 and the 11 is not starting directly from the end of the paper. It starts from that line that I used to take out from the center back. So that's what I did for the bust area. I'll go ahead and use my ruler to also connect all of this together, then add my side seam allowance of 2 inches. Also note that I have not added the zip allowance here. When I'm cutting on my fabric, I'll go ahead and add the zip allowance. So the zip allowance is not going to be straight because you can see that the center back is already a bit slant. The zip allowance has to follow that line so that when you fix the zip, it's going to relax properly. Next thing to do is to measure the strap for the back, and the easiest way to do this is to just place the front pattern on the back pattern and mark what you have. Okay, you can also use your tape rule to measure this, but I just prefer to do it this way. So I'm not going to connect it yet. I'll still have to determine the neck depth for the back. I don't want the back to be too exposed because I'm making this for someone, not for myself. And I know for sure that she wouldn't want the back to be very exposed. So I'm going to be using about 4 inches, 4.5, or say 5. I'm going to be using 5 inches for this. And I'm just going to connect from that 5-inch mark to the shoulder line. So I just connected it like this, and then from there I will mark a straight line. If you want the neckline to be a bit curved, you can go ahead and curve this area like this. I'm just going to illustrate it for you guys to see. I'm just doing a very rough work here because I want mine to be a sharp square neckline. So you can also make it curved like this. So one thing you can do is to extend the dart to meet the neck line. Okay, you can just do it that way so that it will blend in more and you not end up having a kind of bulge at the neck area. Next thing I'm going to do is to check that the side for the front and the back is aligned, and as you can see, this is almost identical. So I'm going to go ahead and trim off whatever excess is there. So this is everything for the back pattern. The back pattern, like I said earlier in this video, is not difficult to do because all you have to do is take out the waist dart and then that's it. Sorry about my voice cracking. So I'm just using the tape rule to confirm that what I have is the same, so that when I'm joining it, one side won't be shorter than the other. So I noticed that the one for the back is shorter But then I realized that the shortage is not coming from the back pattern, so the error is from the front pattern. You can see that the armhole area is looking very slant. So I noticed that I didn't make that part to be straight as compared to the back pattern, so I went ahead to correct that. I had to use another piece of paper for this, so I just used my marker to trace out what I want to be adding back to the front pattern, and then I used a cello tape to hold this down and cut it out. So guys, at this point I'm almost done with drafting this pattern. I'll go ahead and cut out the back pattern. So I'm not going to be dividing the back pattern into two. I'm just going to cut it out as it is, and then I'll cut it like that on my fabric and just take in the darts. While I was cutting this back pattern, I realized that I want to make the back pattern a basque waistline as well, because I think it's going to be more flattering and attractive if the front and the back is a basque waist, because I'm using this pattern for a gathered dress. So I'm going to be gathering fabric and attaching to the waistline. So I just used the sellotape to hold this part back down so that I can cut out the basque waistline. So before marking out the basque waistline, I decided to trace what I have from the side front and then trace it back on the back pattern so that they will start in the same way, following the same direction, so I don't end up having one shorter than the other. So I just traced this a bit, and then from there I drew out the basque waistline with a straight ruler. I didn't really measure this part, I just like eyeballed it, you know. So you can see the way I placed my ruler, and then I just used the marker to mark out the line. I didn't want the back to be as low as the front, but I still wanted the basque waistline to be obvious. So I just connected it this way. Assuming this was a full length blouse, from this center back, the half of an inch I marked would connect this way. So it's kind of like taking a dart from the half inch, connect straight to the shoulder area and then to the blouse length. So assuming this was a full blouse length, this is how I would draw the dart line. So I'm just going to go ahead and place the ruler this way and then draw the line. So this is looking slanted. As you can see, I didn't take it straight. Another thing you're going to notice when drafting this pattern is that one side is going to end up longer than the other because I have not taken out the darts yet. I did not fold in the darts before marking out the basque waistline, but at this point I was just like, you know, over the whole thing, and I just cut it out like that with the intention of trimming off whatever excess or shortage will be there when I am joining my fabric together. But if I want to do this, I would measure what I have here and measure what I have on the other side, and then just extend this side back by the difference, you know, just like I did for the neckline of the front pattern, and then cut it out that way, and I won't have any issue. So I decided to just ignore that and cut out the pattern the way it is, but feel free to implement that if you do not want to have any shortage in your pattern. So I'm just cutting out the back pattern now. This is everything for the back pattern. Okay, in summary, you take out ½ inch from the center back to prevent the bug. You take your waist dart, and then you take your body measurements, add your seam allowance, of course mark out the neckline, and That's it. The only thing extra here is that I added a basque waistline to the back as well. Alright guys, this is everything for the front and the back pattern. I'm just going to do one more thing for you guys to see. Okay, this is an adjustment to the strap to prevent it from not being firm enough. I noticed that when drafting anything like a strap, a cut together strap with a top or a blouse, there's always like a kind of bulge around the neckline area, which makes it to not feel firm when you put it on. I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that or if you really understand what I'm saying, but let me just show you guys how to prevent that. So what you're going to do is that you're going to come up from this line by about 0.25 inch. This should always be between half an inch and 0.25 inch, and then you connect it back to the neckline this way. Okay, I used a different color of marker so now you guys can see the difference. And then what you're going to do for this back part is to just mark out the neckline, extend it all the way to the strap so you can have like a base for taking out the 0.5 inch. So for this back part, I also come up by 0.25 inch and just draw a line. This is kind of like a mini dart. Okay, so what I'm going to do is close this up this way. So I'll just close it like this and then use sellotape to hold it down. By doing this, I've eliminated that excess bulge that makes the strap to not feel tight enough. So that is all for this tutorial. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. I always respond to every single comment. Thank you guys so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, share it to others who might find it helpful, and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't, because I have more interesting videos coming up and you don't want to miss it because they are going to be very detailed. Thank you guys once again for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.